People call it strength. I call it a nervous system that learns to survive chaos. Before I go any further, I have to just give a disclaimer. This episode includes real experiences with trauma, addiction, custody, loss, grief, viral behaviors, and some of what I share may be heavy or activating. This is my lived experience. It's not a medical advice, legal advice, or instructions for anyone else. And if at any point you feel it's too much, you're allowed to pause, step away, and come back later. You don't owe this episode your nervous system. People think survival looks dramatic, like it's screaming, crying, breaking down in public, and sometimes it is. But most of the time, surviving looks boring as hell. It looks like waking up, brushing your teeth, answering text, and pretending to hold your entire life together with a cup of caffeine, sarcasm, and sheer force of will. It looks like showing up to work while your soul is filing a bankruptcy, and it looks like laughing at jokes that you didn't even hear because your brain is already 10 steps ahead, trying to make everything not fall apart later. That version is the survival that nobody claps for. And that is the version I lived for years. I learned early that I stayed functional. People left me alone. If I stayed funny, people didn't ask questions. I stayed productive. Nobody noticed how I was unraveling, and I became very good at it, dangerously. I could be in the middle of a full blown crisis and still respond to emails like, hey, sounds great. Looking forward to it, which honestly is terrifying if you think about it, because that means my nervous system learned how to override reality. And when the body can override reality, it can override hunger, sleep, fear, and common sense. That's how trauma trains you. It teaches you that feelings are optional. Performance is survival. When my kids were taken, I didn't just lose them. I lost a version of myself that I believed effort automatically led to safety. Before that, I thought if you really loved hard and you tried enough, you did everything right, life would eventually meet you halfway. Spoiler alert, it did not. And when they were going, something split inside me. A part of me wanted to disappear completely and just stop, not be here. Another part of me went straight into command center mode, and command center one. It's like it's that part that people call strong, but strength isn't what it feels like. It feels like a switch flipped and said, you don't have time for this. We'll fill this later. And so you did. I felt it later. Years later, I was fighting for my kids, running on checklists and adrenaline. And when people were saying they didn't know how I was doing it, I wanted to say, I'm not doing this. This happened to me, and there's a difference. I didn't choose to be this hyper focused. Hyper focus chose me. Hyper focus is what happens when your brain decides feeling is expensive. It's invest in everything you do, paperwork, court, compliance, recovery, doing everything perfect so that nobody can question me. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. You can be hyper focused on the right things and still be completely disconnected from yourself. That's how I could fight like hell for my kids and still make choices in private that didn't line up with my values. It's how I could be winning and still quietly self-destructing. It's how trauma works. It doesn't ask, is this good for you? It asks, will this keep you alive today? And sometimes the answer is productivity. Sometimes the answer is numbness. Sometimes the answer is a distraction. And sometimes the answer is chaos. Your trauma brain is not loyal to your future. It's loyal to your relief. That is why decision making is impossible when you are in trauma, because you're not choosing between good and bad. You're choosing between pain now or pain later. Your nervous system will almost always choose pain later, and later feels theatrical. Now feels like death. And so you pick the things that make you stop feeling the fastest. You know, the kind like when you're running on empty financially because you had to, tight budget, cutbacks here, cutbacks there, survival, empty. Or the kind where you're constantly doing the mental math, where every purchase has a consequence and you're choosing between gas and groceries. You're not budgeting, you're depriving, and your deprivation changes in your brain. Then one day your tax return hits and everything suddenly seems like an option. and you should be smart with it. Invest it, plan ahead, and logically, you should. But your brain thinks isn't thinking about the future. It's thinking about all your current needs that have been going unmet while you were surviving. So you spend it not because you're irresponsible, but because when you're deprived for so long, everything feels like a need. And you can't tell the difference between want and an actual need to breathe again. Comfort feels like an essential. Relief feels mandatory, and rest feels urgent. It's not reckless, it's backlogging. Trauma creates a backlog. So later, when you finally calm it down enough to think, you judge yourself. Why did I do that? I should have known better. But the honest answer is simple. Because at the time it worked, it stopped the panic, it stopped the noise, it stopped the spiral, and that doesn't make it healthy. It gives you a rationale for your choices. When stress hits, my brain doesn't slow down, it speeds up. And speed is terrible at wisdom, but it's great for escapes. When everything feels urgent, when everything feels like life or death, and when you try to slow me down in that state, my body reacts like you're trying to kill me, which is super fun for relationships, authority figures, a court system, and parenting. And then you add in movies, shows, and music that are now gasoline to my nervous system fire. I don't just watch things, I absorb them, I merge them. And if I'm already stressed and I turn on something intense, my nervous system doesn't say, this is just another story. It says, we're back here. Then hours disappears, sleep disappears, and the same shows up. What is wrong with me? Nothing. It's my nervous system learning through repeated emotion patterns. And of course, a response to a story. Silence feels like danger, and silence means that I have room to fill. And fillings was never safe. Healing doesn't mean that you stop being effective. It doesn't, healing doesn't mean that you understand what's happening before you punish it. I still revert sometimes. I still get pulled into old states. But some days I'm proud I survived. And some days I'm tired of surviving.